Tonight, we expose the greatest fear of the covert predator, the moment their former target ceases to be a victim and becomes a living, thriving, undeniable consequence. You spent years feeding a broken machine. You felt the weight of their toxicity. But we are here for the reversal, for the satisfying, clinical breakdown of what happens when your light turns back on and their fragile, borrowed world goes dark. Let's be blunt. When you escaped, you didn't just walk away. You ripped the power source directly from their core. The narcissist's immediate response is rage, but the long-term emotional reaction is a slow, corrosive panic. They believe they could break you, own your spirit, and discard your husk. But your healing is the ultimate proof of their failure, and that realization is the slow poison that ends them. This is the ultimate psychological warfare. They need your misery to validate their power, but you need their absence to validate your worth. The moment you choose yourself, you initiate a countdown to their inevitable collapse. Your peace is the seismic tremor that starts the structural failure of their carefully constructed false identity. They are currently performing a desperate, frantic pantomime for their new audience. They are trying to convince the world, and more importantly, themselves, that you meant nothing. But every polished lie, every forced smile, is energy they must now generate themselves, and they are emotionally bankrupt. They are running on fumes, while you are fueled by authentic recovery. The haunting question you must ask is not will they ever feel remorse, but what does the end of a lifetime of pathological denial look like? It looks like a slow-motion car crash of the ego. It looks like the total failure of every manipulative tactic they perfected on you. And it looks like a cold, empty future they cannot escape. This is the truth the gurus won't tell you. Your survival is their diagnosis. Your indifference is their death sentence. They are tracking your trajectory, not out of desire, but out of a desperate need to confirm that their narrative, that you are flawed, unstable, and dependent, is still true. Your sustained happiness shatters their mythology. Tonight, we dissect the 5 phases of their collapse. We will map the internal chaos that culminates in the twilight isolation they fear most. This isn't about vengeance. It's about forensic analysis. When you understand the engine of their destruction, you realize their fate was sealed the moment they chose pathology over humanity. Consider this moment the ultimate psychological revenge. You live freely in the light, and they are left to suffocate in the dark of their own making. The walls of their fabricated life are thin, and your quiet triumph echoes like thunder in their empty soul. They broke because you were strong enough to put the pieces of yourself back together. They always confused control with connection. They thought dominating your emotions meant they possessed your love. Your recovery proves the inverse. The real connection, to self, to stability, to authentic life, was theirs to destroy, and they failed catastrophically. The loss of that potential, the road not taken, becomes their ultimate, nagging despair. By the end of this broadcast, you will see your abuser not as a powerful monster, but as a predictable, deeply wounded mechanism that has finally run out of batteries. Your freedom is the only epitaph they will ever deserve. This is the ultimate final scene. The predator immobilized, the prey soaring. The engine of the narcissist collapse is the chronic shame leak. They spent their entire life constructing a facade to contain the unbearable, core shame of being essentially defective. You, the former supply, were the lid on that pressure cooker. When you left, the lid blew off, and the toxic steam of their self-loathing now scalds them perpetually. Their entire identity is built upon borrowed significance. They do not have an internal compass. They navigate solely by the reflection in the eyes of their target. Now that their high-definition mirror is gone, they are driving blind, crashing into the hard corners of reality, their sense of self dissolving into static and confusion. The internal chaos is a direct result of their emotional impoverishment. They lack the psychological mechanisms, empathy, self-reflection, remorse required for emotional regulation. When external supply fails, they are left with raw, untransformed rage and fear. They try to find an outlet, but the reservoir of their own toxic emotion is overflowing, and they drown in it. They are haunted by the specific memory of the golden period, Not because they miss you, but because they miss the feeling of control and possibility they experience when you still believe their lies. That memory is now a psychological torture device, reminding them of the purity of the fuel they carelessly squandered for temporary drama. The narcissist cannot tolerate the dissonance of your success. They operate under a rigid, zero-sum worldview. If you are winning, they must be losing. Your healing is an existential threat, a challenge to the entire framework of their pathological reality. They must dedicate vast mental resources to fabricating reasons why your happiness is fake, or else they must admit their own deficiency. Their need to constantly replace you is nothing more than a desperate search for a functional emotional crutch. They jump from one person to the next, not seeking love, but a temporary external anchor to prevent their false self from floating away into the void. Each failed connection reinforces the terrifying truth that the anchor must come from within, and that is a depth they cannot reach. The cognitive shutdown is total. When confronted with evidence of your peace, their brain shuts down the processing of objective information. They cannot absorb the fact that your life is better, so they resort to increasingly elaborate delusions, whispers, and conspiracies to explain your success, all of which only deepen their isolation. Their grandiosity becomes a liability in their decline. That pathological sense of entitlement ensures that they blame the world, the economy, or the universe, but never themselves, for their crumbling life. This refusal to self-reflect guarantees they will repeat the same destructive patterns until they are completely alone. The deepest fear lurking in their mind is the realization that they are unfixable. They see the empathy and growth in healthy people, and they know, with chilling certainty, that the wiring of their own core identity is permanently damaged. They are watching the world evolve past them, trapped in a psychological amber of their own creation. This is the internal collapse, a screaming ego trapped in a locked room with nothing but its own toxic reflection. The door to freedom is repentance and change, but their pathology prevents them from ever turning the knob. They are condemned to watch your ascent from the bottom of a well they dug for themselves. The dramatic turning point begins not with a bang, but with a silent, terrifying realization of irrelevance. When their Hoover attempts stop generating the expected high-drama response, no rage, no tears, just a calm, factual silence, they panic. They realize their primary currency, emotional control, has been completely devalued. This is the moment they understand permanent loss. They realize they can replace the attention, the sex, and the public facade, but they can never replace the specific, high-quality emotional investment you made, the loyalty, the empathy, the true depth they abused. They lost the only person willing to give them genuine compassion. The power inversion is complete when you become the unreadable witness. They are masters of emotional profiling, but your stable, healed energy presents a blank screen. They can no longer gauge your fear or your desire, and this lack of data renders their manipulative script useless. The predator is blind, and the prey is invisible. They will attempt to generate a proxy war, using flying monkeys or public smear campaigns to bait a reaction. This is their frantic, final attempt to pull you back into the toxic drama triangle. But when you refuse to engage, when you respond with cold, legal, or purely factual communication, the energy they expend evaporates into nothing. The psychological plot twist is the moment their mask slips publicly. Due to the stress of maintaining the facade without your high-grade supply, the cracks begin to show in front of their new audience. Their rage flares are less controlled, their insecurities are more apparent, and the new supply begins to see the terrifying truth you saw years ago. This is the tipping point where the narcissist's past begins to catch up. People who previously dismissed your warnings start connecting the dots. Former friends and colleagues, seeing the pattern repeat with the new supply, start to silently validate your original testimony. The cloud of denial surrounding them begins to lift. Their frantic obsession shifts from trying to control you to trying to control the narrative of your separation. They are terrified you will write a book, start a podcast, or simply tell your story to someone influential. They are not afraid of your anger. They are afraid of your calm, measured truth. They experience a profound loss of self-efficacy. All their manipulative skills, the gaslighting, the circular arguments, the projection, were tools designed to dominate you. When these tools repeatedly fail against your boundaries, they are left feeling impotent and exposed, like a magician whose props have suddenly disappeared. They realize the depth of their mediocrity. They see you building a life of substance, complexity, and real emotional wealth. They realize they can only achieve superficial success, a new car, a new title, while you possess the internal achievement of self-respect and integrity. This contrast is the dramatic dagger to their grandiosity. Their collapse is confirmed when they cease trying to contact you and start obsessing over your social media from multiple fake profiles. The transition from active manipulation to passive, desperate surveillance is the final admission of defeat. They are the ghost in your machine, watching their own irrelevance unfold. Now we chart the steep decline into the long-term consequences. The twilight isolation becomes chronic and consuming. The constant demand for validation exhausts even the most loyal flying monkeys, leaving the narcissist surrounded by transactional relationships that demand constant upkeep. Their success corrosion is a visible spectacle. They may maintain their professional status, but their internal life is a wasteland. Their achievements feel hollow because there is no one left they truly respect to validate them, and they cannot validate themselves. They are perpetually chasing a trophy they will never truly hold. The loss of their family unit, the adult children going no contact, the alienation of siblings, is the most brutal, tangible consequence. They lose their primary source of inherited significance and unconditional obligation. They are left with the cold realization that their own blood chose peace over their toxic presence. Their physical aging process is often accelerated by the sheer psychological stress of perpetual pretense. The mask requires immense energy to maintain. When that energy is depleted, the underlying bitterness, fear, and repression etch themselves onto their face and posture. They become physically grotesque reflections of their inner turmoil. The failure of the new supply is a predictable, painful cycle. The narcissist repeats the love bomb, devaluation, and discard pattern, but with diminishing returns. Each relationship is shorter, shallower, and more devastating to their dwindling social capital. They are a one-hit wonder who can't get a second gig. They will retreat into a defensive shell of bitterness, becoming the neighborhood crank, the office tyrant, or the perpetually aggrieved family member. This is the stage where the entitlement turns to paranoia. Everyone is now perceived as a threat, a spy, or an ungrateful inferior, justifying their self-imposed exile. They are haunted by the generational consequences. They see the younger generations, their grandchildren, their nieces and nephews, turning away, guided by the wisdom of the survivors they damaged. They are terrified they will be remembered solely as the toxic ancestor, the warning story, the dysfunction that was finally defeated. Their final years are marked by the echo chamber of denial. They surround themselves only with people who will agree with their twisted narrative, further insulating them from any possible reality check. This chosen echo chamber, while comforting, seals their fate in a miserable, lonely delusion. They will experience profound regret, not for the harm they caused you, but for the loss of control over you. They regret that they didn't break you completely, that they didn't tie you down forever. This is the narcissistic version of remorse, a selfish calculation of strategic failure, not a moral awakening. Their ultimate end is a lonely performance for a non-existent audience. They will die with their hands gripping the narrative, trying to control the perception of their final moments. They are terrified you will be watching from a distance, calm and untouched, observing the predictable, tragic end of a life lived as a lie. We arrive at the final truth punch. Your healing is the most potent anti-narcissistic force in the universe. Their collapse is not your responsibility. It is the inevitable outcome of their core pathology. You are the proof that integrity wins, and toxicity destroys its host. Final truth. Their emptiness is your fullness. The energy they spent trying to diminish you is the exact energy you now use to build your sovereign life. Your self-respect, your boundaries, and your genuine love are products they cannot counterfeit and can never possess. They are haunted by the realization that their attempts to destroy you only made you stronger. Your resilience is their psychological masterpiece, a magnificent structure built entirely out of the debris they left behind. They were the chisel, and you are the statue. You have achieved the ultimate, unassailable victory, emotional sovereignty. You answer to no one but yourself. You are the ruler of your own domain. This freedom, this radical self-possession, is the one treasure they coveted and failed to steal. Their obsession with you is simply the sound of a dying machine trying to calculate where it went wrong. They are not watching you out of desire, but out of forensic curiosity, desperate to find the flaw in your freedom that might still validate their pathology. They find none. Embrace the closure that your successful life provides. You don't need an apology, a confession, or an explanation. The only evidence you need is the calm, functional reality of your day-to-day existence, which stands in stark contrast to their spiraling decay. You survive the unsurvivable. You walk through the fire they set and emerge purified, while they are left to burn in the ashes of their own deceit. This is the final, satisfying reversal of fate they must witness until the end. Your future is bright, open, and limitless because you earned it through conscious, painful, dedicated healing. Their future is constrained by the rigid, self-defeating parameters of their disorder. Their misery is the function of their operating system. Your joy is the consequence of your choice. They are obsessed because your peace is the definitive, inarguable proof that they are broken, and the only path to repair is one they are physically and psychologically incapable of taking. Your flourishing life is the eternal monument to their failure. Look forward, not back. Their collapse is complete, and your ascent is unstoppable. You did not wish them ruin. You simply removed your presence, and the lack of your light caused the fatal darkness. You are the one who healed, and their brokenness is the silence that confirms your absolute peace.